Well, this is it. The end of Pirates of the Caribbean Online. It's been a long run. It opened in late 2007. I got in April of 2008. Just after the boss battle had got reintroduced, from what I understood when I got in. And it wasn't too long after that that the programming team of Gosselin and company left, the original programming team. Who knows what they left it to? That always has been a mystery. They started out with a treasure map, obviously. They had a storyline that they were going to play out, and never did. They never got to a second treasure map. They simply dropped the ball on anything that had to do with coherent storyline from the get-go. And I don't mean for this to be a total complaint, but it's hard for it not to be something of a real critique of the game itself and Disney. They had displaced themselves so far from the actual players, for whatever reason, I don't know, possibly an internal protection against the team that was given a task that they couldn't possibly fulfill with the low budget that they were given. Who knows, but it could have been a series of incompetent people. But in any case, we all thought that joined the game early on, that since it was a Disney game, that it would be fabulous. The graphics are incredible, just like all of the Disney artists. They're bar none the best out there. The programming about as bad as the artistry is good. But the original coding team did a fairly good job of the whole thing. I mean, I really have got to give them some major credit. Okay, now I want to get into the commentary of this particular game, which is was so wonderful. That, in the sense that I met some nice people and got involved with the game for the first time in my life, an MMO. And that's my character, Esmeralda Bilgepig, by the backside. You can see through her dress and legs. That was a glitch with one of the attire that they didn't put out, but I grabbed because they left it available for a day, and I grabbed it while I had the chance. And anyway, that was nice to have something goofy that Disney clearly had messed up on. Anyway, it's just kind of an obvious thing. I kind of like to get the digs back at Disney, as many did, because they did not talk to the players. I want to speak a little bit more about that. The call center, you could call in, and what the call center was a place to take complaints and say, we're sorry. So they were hired to say, we're sorry. They could do very little to help any of the people, but they tried to make them feel better, and that was their job. Believe this or not, the call center in the last 3 years, they did not have the ability to call and talk to anyone. Not them, not their supervisors, nobody. They were only allowed to email a group that were not the programmers. And then the group would filter their messages, and then deeming some worthy would then pass on the call center emails to the actual coding team. So here's the game of telephone. The player has an issue. Okay? He may, like me, knows how to actually fix a problem in the game. Knows where it is in the code. For example, the sailing healing bug that you'd go and the inner hull was was healed, but not the outer hull, and you couldn't heal the ship because it only determined the inner hull. Well, I knew where and how to fix that code immediately. That bug has been in for 2 years, and the players, I would call the call center. Call center would pass that on in an email. Who knows if the programmers even got the message? But the bug was never ever fixed, and there was no connection between the skilled players and the coding team. Ever. The coding team decided that they were going to, excuse me for speeding up the video, It's still 15 minutes long, and I recorded about 30 minutes, so I just speeded some things up. The coding team never wanted to talk to skilled players. There were a few players that they would connect with, and they were only connect with the brown-nosing players, the players that would praise them. And maybe it was a handshake deal to begin with, so that they could claim to their supervisors they did talk to players, and then when those players were contacted, they would only give praise to the game. It's the only thing I could think of, because those that really had something to say about the game, and we're talking constructive criticism and realistic feedback, they wanted nothing to do with players like that at Disney, which was sad. And the game suffered immensely for it. Their premise was entirely wrong to do it that way. Okay, so I get in April, and I'm playing the game for a while and really enjoying my first MMO, meeting other people, but really more or less trying to find out how to find the edge conditions of the game. That is, how to get over on the game. That's what most, I think, good skilled players want to know, is how you can level up fastest, and is there any shortcuts or ways to do it, because it takes a long time. So and on a previous single user game, I learned how to find places in the game that the game designers designed, but the players were never intended to see after they were those were shelved, but the stuff was still inside the game. So I came across this guy, Edward Edgemenance, in the game, and with the name Edgemenace and edge conditions being the vernacular of a computer science programmer, of which I was one, I just was intrigued by his name and brought this up to him in chat, and sure enough, he turned out to be the definitive #1 person in the game as far as understanding those issues that I was interested in. I was lucky to have met him, and it was a nice and very long and wonderful rapport that I've had with them, even to this day. It was difficult to get on Skype, but they filter the messages in the game, so it seemed necessary to find another venue. He and I have discussed that often. He thought that Disney definitely drove people to find other ways to connect, and in the auspices of safety and liability. I used to argue with a Disney team that they weren't interested in child safety. They were interested in their own liability, getting sued. They were not interested in true child safety. If they were, then they wouldn't allow guild names, websites with the exact same guild names that are in the game. Anybody goes to Google's one of the major guilds, they find the website, and all those children can contact everybody. Disney didn't worry about that because, again, they didn't seem to care. And this was a frustration that the people that had worked with Disney, I had worked at Disneyland, had, because safety was a serious issue for us. But apparently not to this particular group. Well, they did play safe, but they played so safe that they drove you outside the game to connect, because they filtered messages. You could type messages, you could see a thought bubble, and the person on the other end wouldn't receive that message. And you wouldn't know that they didn't receive the message. The only way you could is to bring in a second character in the game and listen and see that the second character didn't hear what you said. They could filter messages and let you know that those messages were not getting out, but they didn't. They left it a mystery, and that created all sorts of grief and frustration amongst quote-unquote friends. Okay, now I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of this thing. I didn't mean to be too long-winded on that, but there was a lot to say. They had a contest when they introduced Ship versus Ship, which was the only real content edition that was worthy of anything in the entire game's history. The other one that could be argued was the drops, that you'd have a probability of getting some nice drops, but Disney biased that so that skilled players couldn't get the drops that unskilled players could. It was kind of a socialism, give to the have-nots, and those that have make it so they can't get stuff. That was a frustrating equation that they put in. I proved it to myself, despite a lot of those brown-nosing players that love Disney. I brought in a new player for the first time in a long time and got one of the things I'd long wanted for years, actually. And within 2 weeks of playing that character, it got the drop that I wanted, of the item that I wanted. Okay, so the SVS, ship versus ship contest, I get 50 halfway down. I win the thing as one of the paid people. And then then Disney didn't give out the prizes because they lost the handle on who was who. They didn't have the accounts attached correctly with their databases, so they didn't know who to send the prizes out to. That was pretty stupid. But when I met Edward Edgemenance, I found out later he was the top person on the unpaid list. He not only didn't wanted to find every edge condition, he wanted to find it out without paying a dime for the game. He was quite brilliant, and he did end up paying from time to time in the game, and it was a wonderful experience knowing him. I've got to mention Druid Blade, the best glitch master in the game, bar none. He's a person I thought was full of braggadocio, and that was it. Pure hot air, but that was not the case. He was full of braggadocio, but he really was the real article. I once tried to work out a flying glitch with him that he had discovered previously, and watched how he worked at developing and honing glitches, and he was an absolute genius. He had a memory like a steel trap. Could have been, if he had ever decided to go into programming, would have been one of the best programmers I'd ever come across. Just an amazing mind, an amazing analytical mind. So I want to give him due credit because I've known him over the years and always admired him, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him. Another mention, and I usually want to talk about principles and concepts and ideas rather than people, but Jinsai is the third person. She, if you haven't seen her videos through the Jinsai, Jinsai, if you want to see some of the best stuff of POTCO, you've got to go on this YouTube channel and look up Jinsai. Edward Edgemenance has his videos on there. Really great stuff. It proves what I'm saying about him being a master of the game. And Druid Blade has a few, but it doesn't say all of the greatness that Druid Blade truly was. He was a lot greater than his videos portray. Absolutely unbelievable mind. And Edward Edgemenance as well, just really good. But the videos show that with Edgemenance, whereas they don't so much with Druid Blade. Edgemenace and I got into some automation we didn't talk about. I got into an automated way of getting materials, guys. For those that you didn't know, I set it on automated. You probably suspected it was impossible for Disney to prove. Because of the way I did it, putting in random number generators and everything like that, so they couldn't really ban me. But truth be told, I could go to sleep and wake up 7 hours later and have 500 oak. For those that wondered, I really could do that, and I'm running out of time here. So, and I want to give credit to the call center. Oh, here's the end of the end. A sad moment. But I want to give credit to the call center. Even though their jobs were to apologize to us, there were a couple of people there that were really nice, really sharp, and understood my issues because they had minds like Steel Trap and Catherine and so on. I just really liked the number of the people. There was only one or two people at the call center that were a problem, but most of them were incredible. And I guess I'm going to close this off, and I want to say thank you very much to Edward Edgemenance and Druid Blade and Jinsai and the people at the call center and Goslin and the original team. You guys did a great job with this game. And there was one guy that would fix all the bugs that the interns introduced, and I want to thank him, that Disney brought in from time to time to fix all the bugs. Whoever he is, I want to meet you. Leave me a message. on here if this ever finds its way to you. Bye, POTCO. Bye, everyone.